We will now continue our discussion on factoring by developing a method to factor algebraic expressions that may not have a common factor. Now, this method that we developed today is called factoring by grouping. Now, look what we have here to factor. Factor a squared plus 3a minus 2a minus 6. Now, is there any common factor in these four terms? There are no common factors in the four terms, except one, which of course is not very useful to us in factoring. Well, let's group this polynomial taking two terms at a time. The first two terms are a squared plus 3a, that's the first two terms, and minus 2a minus 6 is the last two terms. We are going to group them two terms at a time. Alright? Taking the first two terms, we have a squared plus 3a. A squared plus 3a has an a common. If you pull the a out, what would be left in the first term? A times a is a squared, and a times 3 is 3a. So a squared plus 3a is a times a plus 3. How about the last two terms? Minus 2a minus 6. Can you identify a common factor in these two terms? What is the common factor for minus 2a minus 6? Well, the common factor is negative 2. You take a common factor negative 2. Look at this. Negative 2a is negative 2 times positive a. Negative 2 times positive a is negative 2a. And negative 2 times positive 3 is negative 6. So when negative 2 is factored out, what is left in the first term is positive a, and what is left in the second term is positive 3. I hope you understand that concept. Let me make that clear one more time. Now, negative 2a can be written as negative 2 times positive a, and minus 6 can be written as minus 2 times positive 3. Well, the negative 2a is negative 2 times positive a. Is that right? Yes. And minus 6 is negative 2 times positive 3. And what I have done is, I have taken the negative 2 as the common factor. What is left in the first term is positive a, and the second term is positive 3. So negative 2a minus 6 equal to negative 2 times a plus 3. And now, if you put them all together, I can therefore write the first two terms is written as a times a plus 3, and the last two terms is minus 2 times a plus 3. Now what have we achieved in doing so? We have now reduced this into two terms. This is the first term and this is the second term. I hope you understand when I say a term. You must know that a times b, ab is one term, whereas a plus b, how many terms are there? There are two terms. A plus b is made up of two terms, whereas a times b is just one term. In the same way, a times a plus b, a times a plus 3 is just one term. Similarly, negative 2 times a plus 3 is just one term. We have now two terms, and there is a common factor in those two terms. What is the common factor? The common factor is a plus 3. So we factor out a plus 3. When a plus 3 is factored out, what is left in the first term is positive a. What is left in the second term is minus 2. So that gets factored as a plus 3 times a minus 2. A very, very convenient way to factor algebraic expressions like this. Okay, let's practice with another example. Factor 18m squared plus 30m plus 9m plus 15. What is the method that we use here? Factoring by grouping. We group two terms at a time and find a common factor in those two terms and factor it. Now what is the common factor in the first two terms? 18m squared plus 30m. If we take those two terms, we can see 6m is the common factor for the first two terms. And so I can write 18m squared plus 30m equal to 18m squared is 6m times 3m. Is it okay? 6m times 3m is 18m squared. And 30m is 6m multiplied by 5. Now 6m is common there. Factor that out. That will be 6m times 3m plus 5. Now you notice that these two terms have now been written as a single term. This is now a single term. It's the product of 6m and 3m plus 5. By factoring this, these two terms is written as the product of two factors. Okay, what is the common factor for 9m plus 15? Can you recognize the common factor there? What is the common factor for 9m plus 15? Alright, 3 is the common factor. 3 is the common factor for the last two terms. That is, 9m is 3 times 3m and plus 15 is 3 times 5. Factor out the 3, what do you get? That will be 3 times 3m plus 5. Well, this got a little overlapped, but I'm sure you can see this. So 3 is factored out, that is 3 times 3m plus 5. Now, so we can now combine the first two terms with the last two terms, and what does that become? It becomes 6m times 3m plus 5. That's the first two terms. There you are. And the last two terms is plus 3 times 3m plus 5. Now what is the advantage in writing like this? We have now produced a common factor. What is the common factor here? 3m plus 5 and 3m plus 5 occurs in both terms. That is the common factor. We can now factor that out. Let's factor that out. 3m plus 5 comes out, leaving a 6m plus 5. No, 6m plus 5, isn't it? Not 6m plus. No, the 3m plus 5 comes out, leaving a 6m plus 3 is our answer. Okay? Try and do this on your own. First, take the first two terms and factor out the common factor. Okay? Then take the last two terms and factor out the common factor. And then combine the two together and recognize 3m plus 5 as common and then factor that out. Okay, let's practice with another one. Factor cx minus cy minus dx plus dy. Okay, can you find a common factor in the first two terms? What is that common factor in the first two terms? It is c. Alright, c is the common factor for the first two terms, and we can write cx minus cy as c is taken out, leaving an x minus y inside the parenthesis. You notice, always check, c times x is cx, c times negative y is minus cy. So cx minus cy is c times x minus y. Now, when you do this, you must get a clue out of this. What is the clue? We have produced an x minus y term in the first term. That means we are doing factoring by grouping. We should expect an x minus y from the second group also. And once you keep that in mind, you must know what is the common factor you're going to take in the last two terms. Can you tell me, what is the common factor in the last two terms? Minus dx plus dy. What is the common factor there? I know some of you told me it is d. Well, you need to factor out a negative d from there. A negative d. Alright? Now, the last two terms can be written as, look at the way I'm going to write it. Negative dx is negative d times positive x. Isn't it? Negative d times positive x is negative dx. And look at the way I'm writing positive dy. It will be negative d times negative y. A negative multiplied by negative makes it positive. So negative d multiplied by negative y is positive dy. So positive dy can be written as negative d times negative y. Why did we write like that? So that we now have negative d as the common factor. Alright, negative d is now the common factor. Can you factor out negative d from here? What do we get? That will be negative d comes out, leaving an x in the first term and a minus y in the second term. So, negative dx plus dy equal to negative d times x minus y. Do you want to check it whether this is right? Alright, to check it, simply multiply. Negative d times x is negative dx, and negative d times negative y is positive dy. So this is correct. Alright, now let's combine the two together. Therefore, the whole expression can now be written as cx minus cy is c times x minus y, and minus dx plus dy is minus d times x minus y. So that will be c times x minus y minus d times x minus y. What is the advantage? We have now produced a common factor, x minus y in the first term, also x minus y in the second term. We can factor that out. Let's factor x minus y out. That will be x minus y comes out. What is inside the parenthesis? C minus d. Therefore, factoring this algebraic expression gives you x minus y times c minus d. Isn't that beautiful? Yes, indeed. Okay, Go back and practice this one more time on your own. Alright, another one. Factor 2z cubed plus 4z squared minus 5z minus 10. What do we do here? Well, look if you can find a common factor in the first two terms. Can you identify a common factor for the first two terms? 2z cubed plus 4z squared. What is the common factor there? It is 2z squared. Alright? So 2z squared is the common factor in the first two terms. And we can therefore write 2z cubed can be written as 2z squared multiplied by z. And plus 4z squared can be written as 2z squared multiplied by 2. So we have 2z squared common there. Pulling that out gives me 2z squared times z plus 2. And that is the first two terms. Now, what does that mean? What is the clue that you get from here which can be used in the last two terms? The clue is we are expecting that there will be a z plus 2 factor will be produced from here as well. And in order to obtain a z plus 2 as a factor in the last two terms, what must be your common factor? Can you tell me what is the common factor you can find in minus 5z minus 10? Alright, that common factor will be negative 5. Negative 5. That's right. So negative 5 is the common factor for the last two terms. And I can write minus 5z. The negative 5z can be written as negative 5 times positive z. Okay. And negative 10 can be written as negative 5 times positive 2. We have negative 5 as the common factor. Let's pull that up. That will be negative 5 times z plus 2. You see how we produced a z plus 2 in the second group as well. So keep that in mind. Once you work with the first group, you get a clue for the second group. Okay, now let's put it together. So the whole algebraic expression will be now this plus this. And that will be 2z squared times z plus 2 minus 5 times z plus 2. What is the next step? Factor out the common factor z plus 2. Z plus 2 is a common factor. Factoring that out gives me z plus 2 comes out, leaving it 2z squared minus 5. Okay? Let's go and do another one. Factor 12x squared plus 9xy minus 4xy minus 3y squared. Now, if I were you, I would pause the video now and I would do it on my own to make sure that you have understood that process. What is the method here? Well, we need to take the first two terms. Can you take the first two terms and identify a common factor there? 12x squared plus 9xy. Can you identify a common factor there? Well, 12 and 9, common factor is 3. X squared and x, the common factor is x. So 3x is the common factor for the first two terms. And let's write the first two terms using 3x as the common factor. 12x squared is 3x times 4x. Alright? Plus 9xy is 3x times positive 3y. Factor out the 3x. 3x comes out, leaving a 4x plus 3y inside the parenthesis. So the first two terms, 12x squared plus 9xy, now becomes 3x multiplied by 4x plus 3y. What is the clue that you can carry on to the second group? The clue is the second group also must produce a factor 4x plus 3y. And in order to get a 4x plus 3y, what must be the common factor you are going to take out from there? You tell me. What is the common factor we can take out in the last two terms? Minus 4xy minus 3y squared. Well, that will be a negative y. Is that right? A negative y. Negative y is the common factor for the last two terms. So, look at the way I'm going to write it. Minus 4xy. This minus 4xy can be written as negative y times positive 4x. Negative y times positive 4x is negative 4xy. And negative 3y squared is written as negative y times positive 3y. You can see actually this will guide you to write this step. And now we have produced negative y as common to both these terms. Factor that out. That will be negative y comes out, leaving a 4x plus 3y inside the parenthesis. Now we are ready to combine. This is the first two terms. This is the last two terms. Let's write it together. So this expression now equal to 3x times 4x plus 3. That is the first two terms. Minus y times 4x plus 3y. That is the last two terms. What have we achieved in doing that? We have identified 4x plus 3y as the common factor. Alright, we now pull that out. 4x plus 3y is our common factor. Now, once you pull out the common factor, what is left in the first term is 3x, and what is left in the second term is minus y. Therefore, the factored form of this expression is 4x plus 3y times 3x minus y. Okay, I hope this is now more or less clear. You must be very familiar with factoring by grouping. Now, as I told you earlier, the unit 4 is all on factoring. Now, this is the first lesson. Alright, we have just started discussing factoring, the method of factoring. And we will continue in the next lesson and the lesson after. Now, how many methods have we discussed so far? So far, in the first part of this lesson, we discussed factoring the greatest common factor. Now, this is something that you must be able to do in any factoring. The first thing to do when you are given an expression to factor is to see if there is anything common in all the given terms. If there is something common in all the given terms, you must factor that out. That is the first thing to do. Alright, and now we discussed factoring by grouping. Well, I want you to practice and do all the homework and make sure that you understand this very well. Okay, let's do one more. Factor b to the power 4 minus b cubed minus b plus b squared. Okay, what is the common factor in the first two terms? Can you tell me what is the common factor for the first two terms? Well, that is b cubed, is that right? Now, first of all, you notice one thing. As I told you, always look for anything common in all the terms. Now, before you apply any other method, you need to pull out that common factor. If you look here, b to the power of 4, b cubed, b squared. There is a particular number that is common to all. What is that? B. B is the common factor in all four terms. So to begin with, we will pull out a b. Now, when you pull out the b, what is left in the first term is a b cubed. What is left in the second term will be a minus b squared. What is left after pulling out the b from negative b is a negative 1. b times negative 1 is negative b. And what is left in b squared after pulling out a b is b. So we got b to the power of 4 minus b cubed minus b plus b squared is b times, we factored out the common factor, b times b cubed minus b squared minus 1 plus b. This is the golden rule in factoring. Always look for common factors you can pull out to begin with. That must be the first step. And now we have this factor. It contains how many terms? It contains 4 terms. And we can factor that by the method of grouping. So b squared is the common factor for the first 2 terms here. So we are going to use factoring by grouping here. That means first we take the first 2 terms. And b squared is the common factor there. We can write therefore b cubed minus b squared as b squared times positive b. Is that right? b cubed is the same as b squared times positive b. And minus b squared, look at the way I'm going to write minus b squared. Minus b squared is plus b squared times negative 1. Now, what I have done is I have identified positive b squared as the common factor. Okay? Now pull out that common factor b squared. When b squared is pulled out, leaving a b in the first term and a minus 1 in the second term. So this will be b squared times b minus 1. That is the first 2 terms. And what is the last 2 terms? The last 2 terms is negative 1 plus b. Isn't the negative 1 plus b the same as b minus 1? Yes. You must understand that negative 1 plus 8 is the same as 8 minus 1. Negative x plus y is the same as y minus x. Negative 1 plus b is the same as b minus 1. So, our last 2 terms, that is negative 1 plus b, is the same as b minus 1. And let's now combine all those together. What is therefore this equal to? B times b cubed minus b squared minus 1 plus b can now be written as b times. Now look at the way I'm using a square bracket now. Why? Because I'm going to group 2 terms at a time. b cubed minus b squared is b squared times b minus 1 plus negative 1 plus b is the same as b minus 1. Now I can factor out a b minus 1 from these two terms. So now we factor out b minus 1 from the bracket. What does that give you? That will be this b times bracket. B minus 1 gets factored out. Tell me what is left. In the first, after b minus 1 is factored out, you are left with the b squared. What is left here after b minus 1 is factored out? Remember, any number is the number multiplied by 1. So b minus 1 is b minus 1 multiplied by 1. When the b minus 1 is factored out, you have a plus 1 left there. So the quantity inside the bracket, b squared times b minus 1 plus the quantity b minus 1, I wrote b minus 1 as the common factor, in parentheses, b squared plus 1. Alright, now I don't need the bracket because this is a product of two factors, and that gives us the answer b times b minus 1 times b squared plus 1 is the answer. And this was a very good type of problems. So factoring by grouping, I hope you understand the essence of factoring by grouping. Well, now come to the end of the first lesson where we have started the foundation of factoring. Tell me, what is the golden rule in factoring? The golden rule in factoring is, before you do any other method for factoring, look for common factors that can be pulled out. Alright, do that first. Alright, now I'm going to close this lesson here. I will get back to you with the next lesson in this unit, which will be factoring trinomial expressions. Factoring trinomial expressions. And I'll see you for that in a little while.